You're watching Behind the Headlines. I'm Lee Pacchia. Last week, U.S. regulators settled with HSBC to resolve charges that the bank helped international drug cartels and terrorist organizations launder hundreds of millions of dollars over a long period of time. Europe's largest bank admitted wrongdoing, agreed to a $1.9 billion fine, and entered into a deferred prosecution agreement with the Department of Justice. Critics, however, say the deal falls well short of what is needed to clean up Wall Street. Joining me now to discuss, I'm happy to say we have Senator Charles Grassley from the great state of Iowa and Bloomberg contributing editor and former SIG TARP Neil Barofsky. Neil is also the author of New York Times bestseller Bailout, an inside account of how Washington abandoned Main Street while rescuing Wall Street. Welcome to you both. Senator, let's start with you. You were really quite harsh in your assessment of DOJ's decision not to go forward with criminal prosecution of HSBC or its executives at this time. There still, however, is a rather large fine. Why exactly do you disagree with their decision?
Well, I think that setting an example in Washington, I always say in the bureaucracy, if heads don't roll, nothing's going to change. In this case of where you have money laundering, all this violation of law, all the big profits that come from it, and aiding and abetting drug trafficking or terrorism, whatever the case might be, it's pretty serious charge, almost as serious as you can get. Settle with a civil penalty instead of a criminal penalty. It's the cost of doing business. It's a spit in the ocean compared to what these organizations have the capability of making or did make off of these deals. So why no criminal prosecutions ever? Right. Go ahead.
Is it your sense that DOJ has violated the will of Congress by declining to prosecute further in this instance?
The answer, for me, the answer is yes. I don't want to speak for the Congress, but here's where I'm coming from. If you don't have criminal charges, if you don't have some CEO sitting in prison, it doesn't send any signals. It sends a signal that it's business as usual. And with serious crimes like this, you can't have business as usual. You've got to have prosecution, and there hasn't been prosecution.
One of the really compelling things about this case was, according to reporting right before the charges came out, that there were parts of DOJ and the District Attorney's Office that wanted criminal penalties, exactly as Senator Grassley has said, and that they were beaten down in part by a Treasury Department that was once again protecting the largest banks because of fear of dislocation, not just of HSBC, but of the entire global financial system. And there, I think you really are getting into real questions of congressional intent. You know, we don't have a two-tier justice system. Congress didn't say, okay, money laundering is a crime for everyone other than the really big banks.
You can have a corporation that pollutes, and the Justice Department and the EPA are very willing to bring criminal charges against those CEOs. So I don't see the difference between those CEOs and a bank CEO that's violating the law as well.
Well, the top line number, $1.9 billion, sounds great. And it is indeed a large number. It's a record-sized fine. But you have to put it in context, right? So $1.9 billion for HSBC is about 6 weeks' worth of earnings. You know, here we are, years upon years of really enabling and accommodating some of the worst types of crimes imaginable, terrorism, narcotics trafficking, and the penalty, no criminal penalty, and a fine that really doesn't amount to enough to be a deterrent. If they're not going to do criminal prosecutions and they want to achieve the goals of deterrence, we need to start seeing fines that are the factor of years' worth of earnings, not weeks, if we're not going to go down that road because of these concerns of systemic stability. So I think this is an indication, particularly for the individuals who profited, you know, through enhanced bonuses, through increased share price, by allowing this behavior to continue. From their perspective, the incentives are they get to keep all of their profits, and today's shareholders will pay a small price because of the fine. But none of this is enough to change conduct, which is what Senator Grassley's original point was.